Indeed, a lot of people have mistaken or replaced what marketing is by saying that marketing is almost like marketing is equal to social media marketing, or marketing is equal to digital marketing, or marketing is equal to whatever it is. And that is so untrue. And we are not doing ourselves a lot of good by training ourselves and training marketing people in that light. What I use as an example is I look at the field of medicine, for example. Before you can become a surgeon, you would need to train and graduate first in general medicine. You would need to have graduated as a doctor before you then choose to specialize in whatever you want to do. Whether you want to go into psychiatry, or you want to go into you want to go into pediatrics, whatever it is, you first must spend about 7 years, I believe, to become a doctor. And it's only after you've spent those 7 years to become a doctor that you are then able to say, yes, I now want to specialize in this field or that field. Yes. And I think that is what is missing in marketing. I'm glad, as people who are going through this mentorship program, it's important for us to become different marketing people. So if you enter into the marketing field by being a strong social media marketing person, what it means is that you've started as a specialist. You have not learned what you need to learn in those 15 years, which is the crux of marketing. What is marketing? What exactly are we looking at before I then can specialize? And if I talk through what it is that you're speaking to when you're talking about marketing, you would understand, and you can then ask, wait, what it is that particular area or segment or section that you operate in occupies in the total scheme of things. So when you look at marketing first and foremost, and you look at where it operates within what you call the value chain, if you look at the value chain analysis, which was popularized by Michael Porter, and you look at where marketing is, the entire value chain are the different processes that a firm goes through to produce the products and services that it sells into the market. So all the roles, all the processes that it goes through. And if you look at everything, it starts with inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and then service. And you have on top the support activities. So the primary activities in the value chain are inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and service. Those are the primary activities of a company. The support activities are firm infrastructure, human resource management, technology development, and procurement. So what it means is that those support activities can be outsourced, but those primary activities are core to the business. So marketing is core to the business, it's core to any business. And therefore, it is critical and important to understand what that skill means, or what it means. What are the things that you need to learn if you truly want to be an accomplished marketing professional? I say, to break it down and make it very, very simple, is everything starts, there's about 4 or 5 things which are looking at what a marketing person does. So a marketing person first starts with what you call marketing strategy. And what is marketing strategy? Marketing strategy starts essentially from diagnosis. That is where it starts from. So if you are a consultant, a management consultant, you work with PwC, Accenture, or Bains, or any or Pricewater, or anyone that you work with, when you approach a firm or a company and you're trying to understand the problem, the first thing you do is to have to go through diagnosis phases. And that is what marketing starts with, essentially. And what is diagnosis in marketing? Diagnosis in marketing is that stage where everything must start from. It is where you look at the market, and that's why it's called marketing. It's about the market. So you start from the market. You start by looking critically and examining what exactly the needs are in the market, who the consumers are, who the potential users are, what they need, and you look at the area where your product can potentially occupy. So an understanding of the market is where everything starts from when you're talking about marketing. And while I'm talking about this in 1 minute, 2 minutes, it's actually a very, very huge area, because if you get your diagnosis wrong, you will get your recommendations wrong eventually. So the bedrock of your marketing strategy is your diagnosis. Your diagnosis is essentially where, as a marketing professional, you are asking questions to understand from the market what are the needs, what are the needs of the consumers, what are the challenges that they have, where do they operate, what is the context, and so on and so forth. And you can do a lot of this through different structured research interventions. You can do focus group discussions. You can do different kind of discussions, but it's very important to understand how you structure your questions and structure what it is that you are trying to get as feedback, because this is going to form the bedrock of whatever you are going to do as a marketing consultant. So the diagnosis stage is very, very critical. It's very critical, and it's perhaps one of the most important parts of your marketing strategy. So you start from diagnosis. The diagnosis stage is where, of course, you have your research companies, the Cantors of this world and the rest of them, who do a lot of work in that area. But diagnosis is not just about asking the right questions. It's also about how to interpret those answers that come in and to drive insights from what you get back from the market. So that is the first stage that is very, very critical, the diagnosis stage. The second stage after diagnosis is that part where you look at segmentation. So when you are at the segmentation stage, what you are doing is you are now taking the insight that you have gotten from the market, and you are overlaying that on the entire market. There's no brand that is born to serve every segment in the market. This is where you need to make your choice in terms of what is the most profitable segment, your choice about what is the segment that is best served by your business. And a very good example that I'll give here is being part of the launch of a telecoms company so many years ago. At the beginning, when we were going to launch into the market, indeed, at that time, there was very huge opportunities because the market was large and a lot of people wanted to buy the first GSM phones. And therefore, you could make a mistake and say, you know what, we want to serve everybody. But it was important to segment clearly at the beginning. And what we did at that beginning was to segment. And in segmenting, the decision was then to say there's an upper end to this market. Therefore, let us begin from that upper end. Let's set a pricing that would limit the number of people who can come to buy. Let's set a limit as to the number of people who could buy the product, while the rest would aspire at that point in time. So the product was clearly, the market was clearly segmented. The company decided not to go for everybody at the beginning, and that is a work that you have to do as a marketing professional, to look at the segments that exist within this market that you've studied, and to decide how you want to then cut and slice your segment. Most of the time, as we're trained, you have to go for one segment. Very tough to go for more than one segment. And you can do your segmentation on these different bases. But at the end of the day, when you choose a segment that you then want to look at, so you've taken that look at the whole segmentation and you've decided where you want to go. And the next stage after that is then your targeting, where you decide who you are going to pick, which segment you're picking, and then who your target market is going to be. So after segmentation, you go to targeting. So which is we decide exactly who we're going for within the segments that we have chosen. And in going for targeting again for this specific stage, we are working towards being very clear and very, very precise about what message we want to send to this particular segment we want to serve. And once we sort the target, we move beyond the segment now. So we're talking about targeting. So once we decide the targeting and we are very clear about what we're offering to that target audience, then we'll move to the next stage. And the next stage is now the stage where we're talking about the positioning. The positioning is extremely important because at the end of the day, it is a summation or a summary of what makes us distinct and different from every other brand in that market. So the positioning needs to be very clear and it needs to be very, very relevant to our target audience. The positioning is what you can call it your brand essence, you can call it whatever it is that you call it, but that is who you are. That is what represents you in the mind of your target audience. So you have now gone through that stage and you've landed at a positioning. So this stage from your first stage, which is diagnosis, this stage where we have now decided on the positioning is what you call the strategic part of marketing. This takes the time, takes a lot of work, takes a lot of data, takes a lot of digging to truly make a commitment, because once you commit on the target, on the segment where you want to play, on the target where you want to go, and also on your positioning, you are already putting a stake in the ground. This is where I want to go, and then clearly you know what you're doing. So when you look at a brand like the Coca-Cola company and you look at their different brands, you discover, if you've ever worked and if you look at it from afar, you would understand that whether you're talking Coca-Cola, the classic, or you're talking Fanta, or you're talking Sprite, each one of them has different targets, very, very, very different. And when you get a communication brief for any of those brands, you see how different they are. The age at which the target is for Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola target is pretty young, and it's young because the Coca-Cola company understands that at a certain time and certain age, they want to get you into that franchise, and then as you begin to grow on that franchise, you can then devolve into the other brands. Sprite has a much younger demographic, and which is also different from Fanta. So each of these has different, and that is what you need to, that's a decision you need to make as a marketing manager or marketing director. But once you've decided your positioning, you know where you're going as a brand, and it's very clear, it's established, and you have now finished your strategy section, and you are going into tactics. Now, when you go into tactics, you need to look at what's the classic marketing people will call your 4 Ps. You're talking your product, your pricing, your position, your pricing, your promotions, and your place. And here, again, the different variations of that. But what you're doing now is to operationalize your strategy. And you are now looking at your positioning and the brand, and you're taking those decisions, which is what are the products, what is the price going to market with, and then the place, which is your channel, and your promotion. What is your promotion really? Your promotion is your above the line, below the line is your advertising, is your digital marketing, is your experiential marketing, public relations, and every other tool that you can use in the promotion mix. So these are all the things that you play with in that promotion mix. Now, after you've determined that, then, even when you get to the promotion stage, you're talking about what is the tone of voice, what is the tone, what kind of media am I looking at, what's my media choice, how am I deploying media, what am I using and what am I not using, and for what reason, what is the messaging through each of the different media platforms, and so on and so forth. All this takes place in the promotional side. So if you look at this entire process from diagnosis to this stage, from the strategy to the tactical stage, you then begin to look at the entire gamut of marketing. The last piece then is execution. So after the tactics, then you talk about execution, and then that's where you begin to talk about your campaigns. But post-execution, very, very important, is then your measurement or your analytics to see how your campaign is going, how your communication is going, to track how the products are doing, to track how your pricing is, and you also track what is happening in the channel. So that is what a marketing person is doing in total. If you've gone through this analysis that I've tried to compress very, very in the last few minutes, you will realize that what tends to happen is that a lot of practitioners major in promotions, and then suddenly it looks like promotions is equal to marketing. Promotions cannot be equal to marketing. There's certain decisions that must be taken before we get to the tactical stage. And if the wrong decision is taken at that point, then there's no way we're going to get it right at that stage. This is, again, unique for different industries. When I look at marketing people in banks and financial institutions, for example, you find that a lot of them don't have a lot of impact on products, on pricing, or even on place. But they're pretty much really promotional managers, because that is what they're managing. So, but it is important that if they are part of the start, which is from diagnosis, to bring it down to an understanding of the market and the consumer, they're able to take a bigger role in the entire gamut of what they regard as marketing. So when you are speaking to young people who are very serious about marketing and serious about going into marketing, it is always very important to look at this spread and understand that there is a place where the process begins and there's a place where it ends, and there are different iterations before you get to that end. And wherever you then choose to play, it is important for you to understand that your role as a marketing person is not purely as a communications person. In fact, we didn't speak about communications until we started to get to tactics, and we started to get to promotional strategy, which is your communication strategy. Your communication strategy comes under your promotional strategy. You have your channel strategy, you have your promotional strategy, you have your pricing strategy, you have your product strategy, and so on and so forth. So it is important, just as JFK said, that we really decide as marketing managers today and as practitioners of marketing today that we fully embrace the whole gamut of marketing, and that we do not see ourselves as a surgeon or as a specialist in surgery until we have learned core medicine. We cannot be very good, no matter how gifted you are, no matter how good you are in any of the branches of marketing, you cannot be as good if you do not understand really from that beginning to the end. And that is why sometimes when you work in an agency and you get a brief from a client, you can tell clearly that no matter what you do as an agency, this will not work. Why? Because the brief clearly is addressing the wrong thing, and you can see from the beginning that this business or this brand has not done enough of diagnosis to truly understand the problems that it is facing, and is just looking at using communication to solve the problem without really understanding what the problem is. And you are able, wherever you sit, to say that no matter how much I spend on Twitter, no matter how much I spend on Facebook, no matter how much I spend on Google, your problem will not go away. And that is a true test of a marketing professional. A marketing professional is someone who understands from the beginning to the end, and is able to use that to evaluate what they are being asked to do in whatever role they're sitting in, and is also able to constructively put on the table what kind of solutions we must put in place, rather than something that someone has dictated for you to do. Some brands that we work with have basic pricing problems. So there's nothing you're going to do unless you solve the pricing problem. You cannot move forward. And as a marketing professional, it is your job to get to understand and to diagnose and to say clearly that pricing is the problem with this brand. And so if you look at everything in totality, you could say that if you had to apportion percentages to the entire field or area that you call marketing, that if you called it 100%, you could say that the communication side is probably 30%, because then you have the first stage, you have the second stage, and then you have the third stage. And the more we understand this, and the more we understand that there's certain legs that must be well construed before we land on communication, and the more we're able to interrogate those areas, then the more we are more accomplished as marketing people. Today, a lot of development, a lot of changes are making it easier, because now you're talking about evidence-based marketing, you're talking about data-driven marketing. So it means that the consumer is leaving a footprint with their transactions, and you can tell from the beginning. If you are a payment company, for example, by looking at your data and looking at the usage data, the transactional data, you can tell who your customers are. You can tell what to incentivize them to buy more or buy less. And that is because you now have data. For a telecoms company, it's the same thing. You have the data to support that. Very, very, very easy. You can see that from your billing system, whether you're talking prepaid or postpaid. For an FMCG company, you also have that. The biggest challenge that you have today is that the FMCG company has a visibility of the products as they leave their production company and as they go out into the wholesale. But once they leave the wholesale and go into retail, once they get into retail, a lot of FMCGs cannot tell where the activity is taking place. Of course, we know that about 60% of the products are sold in the open market, about 40% or less in modern trade. But then to be able to say, and I say clearly, this is where this sale is coming from, or that is coming from, there's challenges in those areas. But at the end of the day, if you are able to map your strategy from diagnosis down to measurement at the end of the day, evaluation, you are going to be a winner as a marketing manager. To end, because I would like to take some of your comments, to end us looking at the performance of Unilever, the last performance that was released by Unilever. And it's very clear that this is a company, Unilever is one of those companies that was really built on marketing. The brands, the managers, the marketing managers from the beginning understood marketing. At a point, Unilever was considered as a university of marketing. And you can see from their performance, from COVID till now, they've had serious losses over several years. To decommission some of the products. But surprisingly, if you look at their performance this year, while the other big companies that are declaring huge losses because of foreign exchange liabilities, Unilever made a profit. They made a profit because the core, they understand their brands, they understand their consumers, and they understand the path to purchase and the kind of incentives to put on those parts, and they understand how to create distinctivity for their brands, even in a very difficult market where they're competing against grey imports and they're competing against lower profit goods in our market. But that is the job of a marketing manager, and that is what I'm hoping that all of you are able to do eventually. Hope of your career. In different markets and different countries, you see people who approach their marketing training from this point of view as a doctor who starts first as in general medicine and then goes off to specialize, that at the end of the day they can work anywhere because they have the skills and the core skills that are required in any marketing organization, whether it is agency side or the client side. So I wish you all the best, and I hope that you would first go and get your marketing, your medicine degree before you get your surgery degree. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Thank you very much. I don't know if you have any